afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome everybody today. Today is Tuesday, July 11th. It is 5:45, and we're calling this meeting of the Eagle Pass Independent School District regular meeting to order. Mr. Mijares, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Now we will continue with roll call. We have Ms. Hilda P. Martinez, Vice President, present. Dr. Hector Alvarez, Secretary, present. Ms. Glenna Purcell, Trustee, present. Ms. Lupita Fuentes, Trustee, present. Mr. Christopher Hiller, Trustee, present. Mr. Victor E. Perry, Trustee, present. Superintendent Mr. Mijares and Mr. Richard Strieber, our attorney, present, and myself, Jorge Barrera, present. We will now move to citizens' communications and recognitions. And we will have our first budget workshop, and we're opening it up at this point. Mr. Mijares.
Good evening and welcome to the first budget workshop for next year's budget. Please be using your manual that says presentation on it. Those are the selected slides that I'll be going over. That way you can follow me. On the information that will be presented tonight, everything that has been approved by the legislators is already in the budget. If they have approved it, I incorporate it into the budget. The only thing that's not incorporated there is what's going on in the special session that's going on right now. We had the budget committee at 12 today, and after we left the committee, I got word from Austin that they have agreed on what they're gonna be approving. They have consensus. It's gonna be House Bill 2, that's what they're naming it, and everybody agreed on it, and they're just waiting for the governor to sign it. As soon as he signs it, that the special session will be over. We're not anticipating anything other than the taxes to be approved. No vouchers and no additional salary increases. That's as of a few hours ago, so I just wanted to give you the latest information that we have. So we'll be knowing in the next couple of days whether the governor's gonna go with it. I think that there's a good possibility that he will, because that's what he's been pushing since several months and since several years, the tax break that he wanted, and that's what they have agreed so far. So we'll just stay tuned, because you just never know what's gonna happen. The special session is still open until he decides whether he's gonna approve that or they're gonna add something more to it. But that's the way it looks at this point. The tax package consists of, so that everybody will know, in special session, it consists of reducing the taxes by 10 cents. 10 pennies will be reduced, so our tax rate will go down approximately 10 pennies than what we have right now. It also includes, right now, the homestead is $40,000 for all residential homestead owners. $40,000 is gonna go to $100,000. So the approval is $100,000 on the homestead and reducing the tax rate by 10 pennies. So it's a double reduction in taxes. I've never seen such a big tax break since I've been here. So it is gonna cost quite a bit of money, but that's what seems that's gonna get approved. Are there any questions before I get started? Okay. For what? For schools? The only thing that I have word at this point is what I've gone over. And that's the only thing that I have information on that is up for consideration. It doesn't mean that that they might not add anything, because the special session's still open. The governor hasn't signed it, but that's what I'm getting, the information that I'm getting, that's once he approves it, the special session is over. So that's all we have. Now, if they add something to it, or there's something that we're not aware, they can most certainly add that if they decide to do that. I know there were a lot of things that were up for consideration during the regular session. There were tons of bills that all of us were, and when I would meet with cabinet, I would show all the bills so that the board would see, and unfortunately nothing went on because they were not able to agree because of, and I'm gonna say it, because of the vouchers. So they were not able to get a consensus. So that's what I have so far, and I guess we'll see what if there's anything else that happens. Are there any other questions? And just for everybody to know, we don't control what happens at the legislation. By the legislators, it's completely done in Austin, and we're just spectators on everything that's going on at this point, just so we're all on the same page. Sometimes they do introduce something and they add it to the bill so that the bill will pass. So if they don't need to add anything and the tax bill passes, then the tax bill passes, if they have the votes. They do have the largest surplus that I've ever seen too, that anybody has ever seen. They have 50, 60, 80 billion dollars. We went to Austin with our board president, Mr. Barrera, and we got a chance to talk to the commissioner of the one that does the business and finance like I do, but the commissioner over there in Austin. And there were a lot of things that we discussed. Unfortunately, none of them were settled during the regular session. It was unfortunate because they do have the money for it. Okay, let's get started. This is basically what I go over every year just to get the board to follow me. We have 3 categories, 3 groups, how budgets get prepared. This is the way TA, this is the way everybody does it. This is the way I kind of do it, so that to explain it, you have your general fund, that's one group. In that general fund, you have 20 funds or 20 individual budgets, and I'll show you the 21 when we go to that slide. But just so you know, we group them all those budgets, like it's like they're individual businesses that have different requirements, regulations, and guidelines. We group them all and we summarize them all and put them in the general fund category. And that's where you have most of your money. When you start looking at the graphs that I'll show you, you're gonna see that most of your money is in the general fund. And in the general fund, you have the M&O fund, which is what we were talking about, where you levy a tax rate so that you can go ahead and fund that fund or that budget. And then you have your special revenues. Those are the ones that require a grant application. You have those. In this budget, we have 4 of those. They either start with a 2, a 3, or 4. That's what we do with funds. We put a code to the fund, and it's a 3-digit code. And then you have your debt service. That's the other one, the other side of the tax rate, the debt service. The INS, that's the other fund that you can levy a tax rate. That's to pay your debt. And you're gonna see the amount of debt that we have so far, how much we've paid and all that throughout the presentation. That way the board can see where we are with our debt and where we stand. And then you have your capital projects. Those are basically the 4 categories that you work with when you're working with school districts' budgets. If you get that concept, then you pretty much are gonna get a full understanding of how we prepare the budget. That's how we prepared it, and everybody in the state prepares it that way. Here you're gonna see the general fund, as I told you. There you have 20 funds. When you see the graph there, most of your money is in the general fund. You see there that you have most of your money there, 98%, and then you have your debt and your special revenue. So most of your money is gonna be in the general fund. That's your general fund. Those are the financial statements I bring to the board every month. You've heard food service program. You've heard transportation program, the dyslexia program that we have, stay calm, stay gifted and talented. I know Ms. Purcell is very familiar with that one too. You have bilingual, you have vocational, you have, all those are state mandated programs. We have to have them by law. It's not that every district has to have certain state mandated programs, and those are all the ones, and it's 20 of them. And those, and at the end you have your M&O. That's the way you do the budget, and at the top is kind of a summary so you'll know what it encompasses when you're looking at a budget and preparing it. These are the special revenues. There's only 4 of them. We have the summer lunch. We have the visually impaired, that's special ed. We have the IMA. Mr. Camarillo works with that for the textbooks and everything that they do in instruction. And then you have your campus activity funds. And then you have your debt service. That's a third group. That's when we levy the tax rate to specifically pay the debt that we owe. And then your capital projects. We are doing a lot of capital projects, and we're gonna get to that slide. We have over $23 million of capital projects that we did this year alone. And it's substantial because capital projects are usually done through a bond election, and when you look at what we've done about $97 million with our fund balance. We've used our fund balance to fund $97 million worth of projects that we have not gone into debt, that we've paid from our savings. And you'll see what they are when we get to the presentation. So we've been able to do a lot of things, and on top of that, keep a pretty healthy fund balance. These are the different programs. Of all the funds that we know that we have in our budget, we have $165.966 million. You want to know where the money's coming from? You just look at this chart. You see that most of it is 199, and then you have all the other programs. That way you can kind of visualize and see where the money, to which budgets the money's going to. Where does the money come from? That's another very important thing. A lot of times, some of you board members might be asked, hey, who's paying the bills? Who's the one where you're getting the money to pay your bills? Most of the money that we get comes from the state, as you see there. So that's why it's so important for us how the state is done, how they do their funding, because whatever the state does is gonna impact us substantially, because that's where most of the money comes in. Local taxes, as you see there, a lot of people have the misconception that taxes is what pays the bills for the school district. Well, no, it's only 17%. The taxes that we get from property values, our tax office that we have here, it is a big chunk. It's $29 million, but when you put it to encompass how it compares to all the money that we get, it's only 17%. These are the total appropriations, how we pay everything for all the different funding sources. You saw the revenue. This is how the money's going out. And again, M&O is where we have the biggest amount. Why do we have M&O as the biggest amount? You might want to know. The simple layman's term is because in M&O, you pay for the general education of the school district. All the other programs are targeted funds, specific funds for specific requirements for specific separate state mandate programs, and then everything else is for the general operation and the general education of the district. You have a chemistry teacher, he's gonna get paid from the M&O fund. But you have a dyslexia teacher, he's gonna get paid from the allocation of dyslexia, so that you can see the difference. That's the way the expenditures work. This is another very important graph. We think when you're working with a budget, if you're gonna be wrong on the payroll, you're gonna get in a lot of trouble, because the payroll is 81% of your budget. You better get the payroll correct. And you better make sure that you do it appropriately. There were some changes with the fringe benefits, which I'll show you later on, and that's part of payroll. So when you look at your budget, what encompasses most of the money is your payroll. So that money, you have to set it aside. That's a fixed cost, like we say. And then you have your contracted services, you have your supplies, you have your capital outlay, and your debt service. That's a pay chart, so you can see, where are we at 81%? I think we're really good. It's between 80 and 90% that you're supposed to be, so we're at the lower end. We're very self-sufficient. Like our superintendent once said, we do more with less. And That's just the way that if you're not careful with your payroll, that's where you can get in a lot of trouble because it's a large expenditure, very large expenditure. These are all the funds. Food service starts with one. Those are all the funds that we do. So you can see, if you want to look at the funds, we have the different mandated programs, and we have a special project director and a program director for each fund. Each fund that you see, that's a separate, it's like a separate business. We have an administrator that's in charge of it. That administrator, special ed, we have a director that's all she does, and she makes sure we're in compliance. Federal funds, we have a special revenue director, special POPs director there, and she makes sure that all the compliance. So every single thing that we do, we have to have, the compliance is a big issue, and that we have to meet. This is your budget this year and next year. And this is important so you can see where you're going from this year that we're going to the next year. And we're doing the same revenues there because we didn't know that our taxes, we just found out today that the taxes are gonna probably go down substantially. So when we prepared the budget, we prepared it, and we prepared it very similar to what we have right now, and also with the payroll. We couldn't put there something that we didn't know whether the state legislators were gonna approve or not. So you see a very consistent budget there. And that's what we have for next year, going into next year. It's actually a little bit less because we don't have the carry forward funds that we normally have, which is about $300,000 or $800,000. But it's pretty much, we're not getting getting outside the norm of what we normally budget. This is what goes to TA. Then again, you see the groups over there, general fund. We summarize all those budgets and we put them under the general fund. And then you have your food service. Food service, we have to have it separate because food service, when you look at the breakdown of the revenue that you see there on top, most of the money from food service is federal. It's $13.5 million that are federal. So in reality, it's a federal compliance program. So since it's so much federal that's in that state, we have to separate it here because TA makes us to separate it. So this is the actual document that we submit to TA. Summarizes all the funds, and then at the end it tells you everything that TA needs to know with all the footnotes and everything. And that's what we're gonna submit to TA when we submit the budget through PIMS. We go through Mr. Camarillo's department and we submit all the financial data through PIMS. If you wanna know the amounts, payroll, how much contracted services, supplies, and so forth for each fund in the budget, it's there, you can see it. Food service, it's a $15.4 million budget. It's huge. And then you see the different budgets for the different programs. As you see, there's a footnote because we subsidize a lot of those programs. They don't carry enough money like food service. The state only funds it about 67% or 70%. They're not funding it 100%, and we have to subsidize it from the M&O to run that program. That was another thing that was supposed to be on the regular session, them giving us more money for food service, them giving us more money for transportation. That's the other one for transportation. You see some transportation there. We subsidize it from M&O because they only give us about 45%. They don't give us the full allotment because that's the way the funding has been for years. That should have been addressed when we went to Austin. They didn't do any of the things that they were supposed to address. And we're gonna get that to the new grant when we get to it too, that they didn't give us the full money that we needed for the safety and the monitoring of the schools. We'll have a slide on that in a minute. This is the M&O only. We look at all funds. This is the M&O, the breakdown. And you see it's still consistent with all the, when you put all the funds or when you look at M&O by itself, it's still consistent. Most of the money comes from the state. This is the revenues. You see the whole breakdown of the revenues. There's no variance in the revenues. We're pretty much putting the same revenues from last year to next year. And these are the appropriations. We're not putting any, it's a very conservative budget for next year. It's very conservative. You look at the numbers, this year, $90.4 million, and the same goes into next year. It is a very conservative budget. We're not going out there and adding anything that we don't normally have. This is a very interesting, I'm gonna spend more than 5 seconds on it. This is our history. This is what we've had since the last 5 or 6 years. And you look at the tax rate in 2018-19, it used to be 117. We're now down to 92 pennies. When we were at the 117, I don't even remember the TRE, that we passed the TRE. They taken away our TRE through legislation that has made us reduce our taxes. We were only able to keep our TAE for 2 or 3 years, which we were getting about $8 million a year. So we're able to get about $30 million. But the state has been controlling the tax rate. And we went from 117, we're 92, and they're gonna reduce it 10 more pennies. So we're probably gonna be in the 80s, 82, 81 pennies. So when you look at the tax rate, it's a big difference, 117 through versus 82 pennies. The other thing that you need to notice, this never happens. This is not something that you normally see, that you have your taxes going down and you have your fund balance going up. Look at the fund balance. 18, 19, we were at $19 million. And I don't know if you all recall when we saw the stimulus, Mr. Perry was here, I said, this is the most money I've seen that we're gonna get from stimulus funds, and we figure a way so we can use those monies to build our fund balance. And why do you wanna have it in fund balance? Because you wanna have it there in case something comes up in the future that's unpredictable. You already have the money there. You don't have to be passing bond elections, you don't have to be increasing taxes, and now you can increase taxes. The state's not allowing us to do that anymore. So we went from 19.3, and then it went down to 17.4, very low. Then we were able to go back to 51.7, 66.9, 71.7, 72.7. How do we do that turnaround? We used all the stimulus funds, every single penny. We used it and reduce our reduce our expenditures with those stimulus funds, and we were able to increase our fund balance. So we did it the old-fashioned way, and we got it approved, and we used the funds to increase our fund balance instead of using that money to do new expenditures. We use that money to offset expenditures that we already had. And what does that do? 2 months reserve is at 36 million. If you would have asked me 5 years ago, are you ever going to have 2 years reserve? I would tell you no, it can't happen. Well, we're at 72. But then you're going to see how this works in the following spreadsheet. We have to look at the whole picture. We have to look and forecast for 3 or 5 years ahead, because we cannot just look at a budget for 1 year or from the previous year. We have to forecast and see what do we have in the long term. And you're gonna see here, I'm gonna walk you through it. We started at 66.9 in the M&O fund. We had a deficit. That deficit, you have a 5.6 million, that's the salary increase. That's a salary increase we approved for this year. It cost us 5.6 million because the budget was balanced before that raise. So what we were able to do, you see the ESSER. I'm getting 10.5 million of ESSER for 22-23. I'm using it all to offset expenditures that we already have. So I'm using that money to help us. So I'm able to come ahead because it was 5.6. I get 10.5 from the ESSER. Indirectly, I'm even funding the raises with the ESSER funds, which we were able to do, 10 years when we got ESSERs. I used that mechanism, because there was about 10 or 12 years, and I know Richard gave us an opinion on the ESSERs that we had 10 or 12 years ago. We got it from his firm, and we were able to do that, and that's what we did again this time that ESSERs were available. And we came out ahead, so we went from 66 million. We will be at the end of this year at about $71, $72 million. Then we go to next year, 23, 24. We have to carry that deficit of 5.6, which are the raises. Remember, raises are it's a fixed cost. Once it's granted, it's there forever. It's a salary line item. So then this next year, my ESSER is going down. It's going to 6.6 million. So I still come out ahead next year, 2023, 24. And then we go to 24, 25. You see now it's gonna start, the fund balance is gonna start coming down because we have a deficit of 5.6, and in 24, 25, the ESSERs are gone. Next year, when we get the 6.6, is the last year of the ESSER funds. Next year, the following year, 24, 25, there's no more ESSER funds, so there's a 0 there. So now you see that the fund balance is going down because I don't have the ESSER funds to offset it. Okay, what are the funding considerations for 0304? We don't have any salary increases. The only thing the only note that I was able to put there, that it was pending legislators that are currently in special session. That's the only footnote that I could put in there. And then number 4 was approved. And I just want to make sure I checked it left and right. Superintendent, I checked it online, I checked it everywhere. Number 4 has been approved. House Bill 3. This is House Bill 3, and we will be required to have 1 police officer per campus. However, they're doing the same thing they have done for us for transportation. Remember, I told you they don't fund it completely. Special ed, they don't fund it completely. They're gonna be doing the same thing here. They're only gonna give you $15,000 per officer, and I have a footnote there. Each officer with no years of experience, if we get them, it's $53,454. So even if you get 3 officers, the funding for 3 officers, you cannot even fund the cost of 1 officer. But that's what the legislators have done in the past, and that's what they did again. So the way it's gonna affect us is that right now we have 37 officers. With that money, we can hire 6-point-something officers. It's not the whole 7, but we will go the 7. We will have to spend a little bit more than $360,000. I think it's $375,000, $76,000. We're gonna have to go over. That's gonna give us a total of 44 officers. Once we have 44 officers, we will be able to have 1 peace officer at each early childhood center, 1 peace officer at every elementary, and then Mr. Mijares is gonna meet with the chief of police and then do the coordination with the secondary campuses so that we can have what we need to have, even though they're not funding the officers, they're funding the officers maybe at 40%. We're having to pay the other 60%. So that has been approved, and that's what the plan that we have right now that we're working on. The other considerations, they're at the bottom, and it's a big ticket item. We're looking into the future, 3 or 4 years ahead, 5, even 5, and we need to look at these things, because if you don't look at them, they can really damage the budget. Now, number 1 is, this year we had a shortfall in ADA. We did not realize 773 ADAs were not realized. We were short. The enrollment was a little bit better, much better, but we get funded on attendance. We don't get funded on enrollment. We had certain days that Mr. Camarillo did do appeals, but it can only help so much, because even through the appeals or whatever, we have FTEs, we have money that we have people that don't go to the cafeterias. We have a lot of other programs that impact, and that cost us $5.9 million. This year alone, we're gonna lose $5.9 million. And just in the ADA shortfall. It's an ADA shortfall. That's what it is. And then number 2, we have the salary increase that we have that deficit for, that we gave this year. We have to live with that one, and we have to continue knowing that that's a deficit. Number 3, which all the board members know about, we'll probably be dinged on this one. We're probably gonna have to, the appraisal district is probably not gonna meet the requirements, and we're probably gonna be assigned state value. And what that's gonna do, this is the 3rd year, what that's gonna do, we're gonna lose between $2 and $5 million because of that non-compliance. And there's nothing we can do about it. All we can do is hope that when I see that report early, that we will make it, and right now it's wishful thinking. So that's another funding issue that we need to look at. And the last one, number 4, there's no more ESSER funds. Those 6.6 million, even, I'm just taking the 6.6. There were other years that we got 10.5. I took the lowest one, 6.6. We're not gonna have those ESSER funds. So when you do the math, just simple math, we're looking at a change in our funding of between $20.1 and $23.1 million. So that's why we have to be very careful. We have to know the funding issues that we have in front of us, because they're not going to go away. Now, next year, every year, I will tell you, our enrollment and our ADA has improved. This year, it improved by about 600 more. We saw the reports, but we're not at the 13,063 that we were before COVID. We were at 12,192. And that's where you get the difference of the 973. So hopefully, we've been looking at it, maybe next year enrollment's gonna continue going up, and maybe this number is gonna be less than what it is. But those are the 4 things that everybody here needs to be aware of, that yes, it's a good thing that we did what we did with fund balance, and that we're in this situation to address something like this, but we also need to be very careful in what we do from this point on. Now, the local the local allotment, the basic allotment should have gone up. I just didn't see why that didn't go up. Our basic allotment is outdated. That would have given, when I calculated with the superintendent, that might have given us $7-9 million more, and they didn't address it. And that's one of the things that really is hurting every district. The other is enrollment versus ADA. And Mr. Barrera remembers when we talked to the commissioner. How can you be funding us on attendance and not enrollment? Like I told the commissioner, we have the expenditures. When we look at expenditures, we do the expenditures based on enrollment. And you're giving us, as I asked Mr. Camarillo during lunch today, what's our enrollment, our attendance, our attendance rate? 90%. It's never been that low. We're at 90%. Is that what you said, Mr. Camarillo? 90%. So that means we're losing 10%. And then they know that it's not right because every district's facing that. And what's happening? They're staying with billions of dollars. That's why they have such a big surplus, because we're losing 5.9 million. Imagine what other districts are losing. There's more than 1,000 districts. When you do the math, the state is staying with that money. Somebody's staying with that money, and it's not the students. So they were supposed to address the enrollment issue, and they haven't. So hopefully in the next session, 2 years from now, when they have double the money, they're gonna have double the money than what they have now. When they meet 2 years from now, they're gonna have double the money that they have from now, and then we'll see. Maybe they can do the allotment. They can increase the basic allotment, and hopefully they can help us with the attendance and the enrollment. We're very happy that we did what we did with the ESER, because I can tell you right now we're not in a situation that we're gonna go bankrupt, but we need to make sure we know that those are the issues that we need to be looking at. That's the next one. That's our general fund. It's basically the same information, except this is what I give the credit rating agencies, because we do have debt out there that we have to pay. Look at the fund balances. This gives you the picture. Hey, Eagle Pass has this fund balance. What about all the other districts? What is their fund balance? You see how we compare with every single district that compares to us, that's in our area. I never thought that I would tell you that we have a bigger fund balance than Harlandale. But Harlandale has had their problems. They have closed schools because of ADA, because of enrollment, completely shutting down 2 or 3 schools. And I'm not saying we're gonna do that, but I'm saying when it's drastic measures and you have schools that have the enrollment, we have some of them in our district, and that's what other districts have had to close the schools and then just send those kids to other schools. And Harlandale had to do that. But you see there now, I think we're the one with one of the largest. We're the second up to Laredo, but Laredo's a lot bigger than us. So we have a good fund balance, and hopefully the things that I went, the $20 million that we're anticipating, hopefully in the next years we're gonna be on it. We're gonna be on it in making sure that we do the precise decision that needs to be done, and that we optimize everything that we have so that we can hopefully come out on top as much as possible. Big operation, this is all the payments that we do. And we do payments on a monthly basis of $14.1 million every month. That's the expenditures that our department handles. The payroll and the payment to all vendors. I've lost track, I don't know if it's 10, 20,000 vendors. But it's a big operation, and that has to be done. We pay employees twice a month, and we pay our vendors once a month. That way you can get an idea, and by month, what the disbursements are. These are what we subsidize. When you look at subsidies, this is what the state doesn't give you the money, and we have to pay it from the M&O fund. That's what, when you look at this. Athletics, you subsidize it by $6 million because TA and the state doesn't give you a penny. It's hard to believe that, because that's an extension. They call it extracurricular activities, but they don't give you not even a dollar. We all have to pay it. You look at special ed. Special ed is one of the largest one because they don't fund it completely. Transportation is one of your bigger ones too. And I want to give credit to food service. You see, they're 1.6 service, because food service, we used to subsidize it. And food service has completely turned around their operation 180 degrees. I cannot say 360, but I guess 180 degrees. And they completely turned it around. And I can tell you right now, that expenditure, you're not gonna have it this year, and I don't think you're ever gonna have it because you have people there that know what they're doing. And they understand the funding mechanism, they understand the approval process, the reimbursement basis, they understand the numbers. And that's something that we will not be subsidizing anytime soon. So those are the things that help us. Because there are some things we can't control and there are some things that we can control. Transportation, we're not gonna be using transportation anymore for out-of-town trips. We did our bids for the charter buses early this year, 3 months early. Even though they could not give us a schedule, we demanded the schedules early and we were able to do that early. So we're not anticipating not having charter buses next year. So all those are the things that help us, because when we were using the yellow buses, our yellow buses cost too much money when they go out of town. We're losing money. And we should not be in the business of losing money. I don't care what operation you're in charge of. So those are all your subsidies that you have. That means that we have to give it from the M&O fund. We robbing Peter to give to Paul here. And then you see the comparison from last year to this year. The subsidies are exactly the same. We're not adding anything additional. These are the projects that we were talking about, and that way the board knows. We're not gonna say just 24 million. They're listed there. These are the projects that we're doing this year. And sometimes someone might put them on that board that you have in there and so forth. But once you start adding them up, you realize that it's a substantial amount for 1 year. I've seen when we did the SAC, the SAC election was less than this. I know Mr. Streeter and Andrew Pita was on the board. Our bond for the SAC was less than this. And all this is being done with cash money. And that way you should be familiar with the things that are there. Every board member, oh yes, we were doing, we were doing that. And one of the major things has been school security. Every school is gonna have the cameras they need to have. They're gonna have buttons. They're gonna have access control. They're gonna have everything they need to have. It just takes a while, but we already have earmarked the money for that. Those are the important things that we have. We have the planning that we haven't done. We have certain things that need to be done. And at the end of the day, the longer you wait to do something, the more it's gonna cost you. That's another thing that we need to also realize. The vehicles right now, we have to wait for them 2 years to get here. Luckily, we've been buying vehicles for the police department before this happened. I met with the chief, I bought him like 8 cars before what's been going on started to happen. And then we start continuing to buy him the vehicles because right now the school safety is something that we need to be on top of. So those are all other things. We've been doing a lot of repairs to the schools. Mr. Felan has been really busy. I call Mr. Rolando Salinas, and they're busy. They're doing things that they need to get done. I don't know if there are any questions on any of these projects, but these are the projects for this year. And then there's a continuation what we had looked at the previous year when we had started. And then those were the ongoing on page 30. Those are the ones from the previous year. I took off things that were here to put them over there. I didn't want to have them in both places, but those are what we had took. That's what we've done in the past years, 2021, 1920. We've been doing projects. The next one, 2017 through 1920, 2019-20, and that was a good year that we spent a lot of money. And then these are the pay raises. For the last 7 years, you have all the years there for 7 years. The last one that we did was 5.6 million that you said to the end. When you look at a 7-year cycle, we spent $26 million in raises alone. So what that tells you is the district has always been trying to do as best as they can and be as competitive as they can with the salaries. And yes, you're gonna see that slide in a few minutes. Eagle Pass ISD is a school district that pays the highest average salary than any of the districts in the state. And I'll show you the facts in a few minutes. That means that not the starting, but the teachers that stay with us, when you do their average salary, their salary is higher than any other district that you can compare to. And I'll show you the facts in a few minutes. When you do the math, In 5 or 6 years, we've done $97.3 million in special projects, all funded from the fund balance, which means if you had not done them, you would have a $169 million fund balance. They all came from fund balance. Our fund balance right now is 71, it's 169. That's what we've done so far, no bond elections. This is state comp. I remember when Hilda came in and she was new to the board and everything, the state comp, and Lupita, I was scared of the state comp because I was scared of Provision 2. Provision 2 was the formula that we had for food service, and it incorporated your state comp funding. So whenever the one time we were going to lose $2 or $3 million because it would vary so much from year to year, and now we do the block. So it doesn't do that to us anymore. The funding is consistent. So I just wanted to tell you, so consistent when you see there, it's all in the 17 millions in each state for all those years. And when you see the footnote, you see CEP, highest percentage estimated each year, 4-year period, that's our old system. Now we have the student sense block funding. The state legislature changed that. This would give me nightmares every time I would do the budget. I'm serious, because from one day to the next, we would not be Provision 2 and we would lose $3 million. It was that scary to me. And now we're not in that formula anymore. Now we're in the census block, and then Mario gets to use do the reimbursement in a better and more effective manner than we needed to do it before. That's a big budget. State comp funds anything that Title I cannot fund. They do at-risk students with your Title I funding. You pay all your IOs from there. You pay all the supplemental teachers that you need to have for at-risk students. It's a very important program because our at-risk percentage is high. It's higher than many other districts. This is just what I prepare. As you can see, if you see a 000, that means that those funds are in balance. We don't have to worry that they have a deficit. The 166 has a surplus. And then you see the 5.6 and the M&O. This is something that I developed so that I could see everything in one page and see, hey, where is it that we have a surplus? Where is it that we have a balanced budget? Or where is it that we have a deficit? This was developed by me many years, and I have it there because it keeps me in check. We cannot do this anymore, but this is pretty much what we did with the TRE. That we would increase our taxes, and the state would give you a big portion. This mechanism, I can still calculate this, but we cannot do this anymore. But that's just to tell you that we're not in the driver's seat anymore, the way we used to be before. That we were able to go into a TRE and be able to, by increasing 1, 2, or whatever pennies you want to increase, the state would give you double that money or whatever. We're not able to do that anymore. The governor is controlling the tax rate. Right now, they approve that. Let's suppose they approve it next week. In August, I have to be waiting for the email to come, and they will tell me what my tax rate's gonna be. I don't do an effective tax rate. I don't do a rollback calculation. I don't do anything anymore. They're telling us what the tax rate is. They're controlling the tax rate. Very interesting, but that's what they're doing. Yeah. This is where you see what I was telling you about the enrollment and the attendance. You saw the big dip that we saw in 21-22. It's gone up, but it's not still where it's supposed to be. You see this year? It's still not where it was even in 14-15, even in 15-16. We're still a little bit below where we're supposed to. Enrollment, unfortunately, we don't get funded on enrollment. We only get funded on ADA. And the gap that you see between those two is the money that we're losing in funding because we don't get it on enrollment. We get it on attendance, and we're at 90%. Very low rate. This is how much money we lose. And I told you 5.9. At 5%, you would have lost 653. ADAs, we lost 773. So we lost $5.9 million instead of the biggest chart. We lost that money. I'm making it up in other ways, but that's money that we could have had. Just so you could get the idea, that's money that we could have had in our hands. This is so you see, that's the actual PIM submission. You're looking at an actual report from TA that PIMS does, the TSD report. This is an actual report. There in 2002, 2003, you see where ADA went to 12,290. It was 11,727 the previous year. It went up 565. We're still not at 13,063, but it did go up. It did go up. And also the other programs, the other STV. So we're hoping that next year will continue to be another year because it's happening in stages every year. It cannot happen overnight. And I think that maybe next year we'll have a better year. We can have a better year in enrollment, and we can certainly have a better year on the ADA from 90%. Right, Mr. Committee? We can certainly go up from 90%. That's a very doable percentage that we can go up from because it's at the lowest at 90%. We've never been at 90%. Since I've been here, we've never been at 90%, ever. These are the taxes throughout the years. Just look at the taxes on page 45 on the next slide. At the bottom, you see PISD. When you look at the total rate, we've reduced our taxes by 25%. Our taxes have gone down by 25%. Reduction. We have another 10 pennies that are coming up. So this is going to go into the 30s. But when you look at the city, at the county, and at the other entities, their rates are the other way around. They've increased taxes. Very interesting. There you see in the next slide, you see our tax rate, the where it compares with everybody. We're at the lower end. Our tax rate is low when you compare it to everybody else. We do miracles with the tax rate that we have. People don't understand how we can do what we do, but those are the numbers. This is very important. I developed this, and this is where you're going to see the appraisal district and how state values are so important versus local values. In a nutshell, nothing complicated. There's local values and there's state values. The local values are the values that our appraisal districts come up with. We cannot intervene. It's illegal. That's why they're a separate entity, because we levy a tax rate. And if you levy a tax rate by law, you cannot do the valuation of the values. You can't do both. It's a separation of power. So that's what we call local values, what the appraisal district says that our values are, and that's what we do our tax rate. The state has their own study. The state does the study. The appraisal district only provides the information to the state so that the state can do the study. Just make sure that we understand that very clear. They press the button the way we do it in PIMS. They send it to the state controller's office, the information, and I see the report when they sign it, and they know to give it to me right away. I see it, but I cannot be making changes or do anything to the report. Only the chief appraiser can sign off on it, and Mr. Perry's familiar with it because of his dad. It goes over there, they get the information, then they do the value study, and then the state comes with the state values. And then there's a report that the superintendent gets in January. They compare the state values that came from the state based on the study, and they compare what our local value was when we did when they finished doing the values so we could levy the tax rate. And if you're off in certain categories by more than 5%, you have not met the requirement to keep your local values because you're out of whack. You're at a higher variance that you can be. And therefore, that's when they say you did not meet the local value, the state values, because you were off in a certain category. There's plenty of categories, 7, 8, 9, and then in all of them you have to be within 5%. And if they're not, and we have not met it for the last 2 years in a row, and this will be the third year. They give you a chance. The first year, there's no, you don't get any, there's no, it's like if you met them. The second year, the same. But if you don't meet it on the third year, they give you 3 times. On the third year, then that's when they come in and they say, you already didn't meet it for 3 years in a row. We're gonna give you state values, and there where this report comes in. And I'm gonna show you right now. Let's look here at the state values number 6. That's what they call the funding lag. That's what the people in Austin came up with. When you're looking at the state values is used to fund our state funds. When you see most of the money comes from the state. So if our local, we're gonna be losing a big amount because the state values are gonna be higher than our local value, which is what we use to levy our tax rate. So that's where it goes, where you lose the money. They're gonna incorporate the higher values, and the state's gonna send you less money because they're higher and they think you're richer, and they say you deserve less money when we would never had that chance to levy that in the tax rate because we use the lower values instead of the state values. And that's where the issue comes in with the money. I hope that they meet it. And look at this number. This is a very interesting number. It has never happened, and we work with percentages. And and number 5, the average increase from last year to this year is 4%. That's the average throughout the whole state. Everybody's value is going up by 4% when they do the average. And the interesting thing is that the values from the appraisal district, I'm looking at 4.48. They're very close. And it's going to be interesting if we're very close to meeting it, because in the last couple of years, we have not been close to it. We've been way over the 5%. So the way that I'm looking at this into the future, I think it's going to be close, but we just don't know until we see all the categories, because this is just the overall amount. They look at specific categories individually. And if you meet it overall, but there's a category, homestead category. They have the different categories that they have: personal value category and ag category. And those of you that know about the ag and all that, they have different categories. You have to meet them in all of them. So if you meet him only in all of them, but you don't meet in a category, you will not make it. So I think this year, when I've seen it's 4%, I think that the appraisal district is pretty much very close to what the average is. And hopefully, if they meet it, it'll be great. We will not lose any money. And that 20 million that I gave you will go down more. And then the ADA, we get more ADA, will go down more. So we might be able to better our financial situation. But the funding lag is probably one of the most important that the state wants me to put it on the agenda, because there's a difference between the certified values from the appraisal district, and there's a difference between the values from the state, number 5 and number 6. And you see that this year, they're the same. They've never been the same. I already put them there. Estimated state certified property value and number 5, 3.3. And then we go to number 6, property value funding lag and the difference and so forth is also 3.3. I have them, and then I have funding lag at 0. Right now I have them right there at the same value. So it'll be interesting what we can see, and hopefully we will not have that problem. Are there any questions? I know we have 3 board members in the appraisal district. And I know that there's been some changes in personnel into the positive scope of it, but I don't know if there are any other questions from anybody on this issue. But it looks like if this year it'll be very close to hopefully meeting the requirement. I do say in the 28 years that I've been in the district, I worked with the previous chief appraiser, and they have always met it. I've never been in a situation that they have not met it for 3 years in a row. And I've been the one that has been working with them. So we've never been in a situation that an appraisal district doesn't meet it for 3 years in a row, much less not meet the requirement. But it'll be interesting. Hopefully, it looks like if it's going to be a close call. The values didn't go up that much statewide. I know everybody says the values went up so much, whatever. No, the state average is 4%. Okay, and we get to keep a percentage of that. We get to keep it, and they don't reduce our funding. I think it's 4 point something. So I think we get to keep all of it, and they don't reduce our funding by the amount that it went up. These are the tax projections. Remember on the graph you saw 29 million. It's at 31 million. I put it there at 92 cents. That amount's gonna go down, because remember, once it goes from 92 to 82, those 31 million are probably gonna go back to about 28, 29 million. So I think that tax relief is gonna go through. These are the state values. that we were talking about, you have them at 3.9. These are not the appraisal district, these are the state values. And example, here, we're projecting 3.9. If the values from the appraisal district are not anywhere close to that within the 5%, that's where we're gonna have problems. These are the different years, the budget assumptions. There you see all the key elements that I have to use when I prepare the budget, and I'm showing them to you so you can see them, how consistent some of them are and how some of them are different. But we have to be aware of all those components. They're crucial. If you're off a little bit on any of those components, your budget's gonna be off. It can be in the millions of dollars if you're not careful. This is a calculation that we do when we do the posting next meeting that we're gonna have, and then we will approve our budget in August. We have to calculate, now that we have 70 million, we have to calculate the number of days until TA gives us the first disbursement for the next year's allocation, and we have to have money to fund that. It's 11 million, so we're way over it. We're $60 million over it, so we don't have a cash flow issue in essence, and we have to provide that in our calculation. This tells you that the budget is not changing 0.23% in the negative, which is about 300,000 less because we're not doing the rollover. So this also has to be in the posting in the newspaper. We have to put this in the newspaper. This is a debt that I told you. We've paid some debt. Now we only have number 7 and number 8, and it's a SAC, and it's the last schools that we have built. That's all we have in our books. We have $38.3 million in our books. We're gonna pay 1.9 this year in bond payments. We still have 38.3. May I say, it's a good thing we did the refinancing of all this stuff with David Gonzalez when we did, because the rates that we have right now are nowhere near the rates that are in the market right now. They're outrageous. I see them. So it's a good thing that we haven't had to borrow money either, that we built everything from cash. The rates are outrageous. They're just way over. I mean, I don't know how people can do such a high interest. This is IFA. So you know the debt, that's a debt. And all of our debt, all of it, all that money that you saw there, the state pays a portion out of it. The taxpayer is not paying 100% of it. Because when we went, they did the SAC, I know Ms. Fuentes, remember, we only had to pay it the first year. The second year, the ADA kicked in, and they paid 80%. So that SAC that you have over there, the state paid 80%. We had to go 3 times. And then the last time, I remember I told the committee, if we don't pass it, they might take this funding away, and they took it away. So we were just fortunate that we got it on the last year that the funding was available. So everything that, when you see debt, the district has been very careful with that, and so has our financial advisors, and so has the attorneys that we have with Mr. Strieber, that we've always said we will do the bond election only if there's state funds available. So like here, we have to pay state funds. You see EDA entitlement, out of the $13,000, the state's paying $7,410. They're paying a chunk of it. And then the other debt, that's to pay all those funds that you have there. The payment, they're paying $771,440. The state is paying that. So we're maximizing and getting funding for everything that we have a debt for, every single bond. This is what's gonna come out. The tax rate's gonna be lower. I have it at 92 because that's what I prepared it with current law. This is current law. We're gonna have to use a new template. They'll let us know what we're gonna do in the next couple of days, or hopefully in the next week, and then we'll come up with the new rates. This is the schedule that we have. We're right on target. That's what I gave you in December. And we're here July the 11th, doing what we doing in the first workshop. And then we're gonna continue on the next board meeting on August the 8th. We're gonna have a special meeting, and then we're gonna adopt the budget on the 22nd. This is basically, so you can see the raise, the $5.6 million raise. This is what the employees got. We did it a little simpler, so we can remind ourselves. You see the math there. Those are teachers on number 1. They got $3,508. They got $50 step, and they got a $6,000. So they got a total of $9,558.12. And then the ones that had more years of experience got a 9,608.12. And then you have the other professionals. That's what you gave last year, which was for this year. We did the bonus and we did the raise all in once, and then those were the other employees. In the previous years, you see there 1 through 19. If you want to look there at teachers, they've gotten a 67% increase, or from 67 to 68% increase. So we've done a lot. We used to be at 33,000. I remember when we were at 33,000, and now we're at 53. So we've done a lot of progress with the salaries. Those are the positions. That's a cost for a 1%. That's a step. This is a current structure that we have at 53,000. That's last year's. It's pretty much going to stay the same. And this is where I was telling you, this is the average salary. We have the highest average salary for teachers. These are concrete numbers. We pay more than Northside, more than Judson, more than Anable Heights. Those are the big, rich districts. More than Austin ISD, more than San Felipe ISD, more than Uvalde, and that doesn't include the health insurance, which we'll go over in a few minutes. The health insurance that we have, nobody has what we have. So when we meet the average, teachers that have maybe, when you do the average of a school district, the average years might be 20 years, 18 years. It's people that have been there for a while, and then they take the average of the first year teachers too, and then they average it all together, and we have the highest average salary. That's what TASB goes by. They go by starting salary, and then they throw in the average salary. They use both components. So just to tell the board that we pay our teachers to stay with us. And when they leave and they want to come back, they say, I'm getting a pay cut. I'm coming back, they were paying me less where I was. I want to get paid what I was making when I left. And that's when they realize that we pay our experienced teachers more. Experienced teachers get paid more than anybody else in another district. This is the breakdown. We were talking a number of years of experience. Those are the teachers. You want to see where they're at, how many are, where you have the most teachers with the years of experience. You can see it from that graph. And then when we throw the counselors, teachers, and librarians all together, then you can get it from there. This is a structure that's in the compensation plan that pretty much stayed the same. Those are your directors. That's the daily rate. Those are the paraprofessionals, the positions. Those are their hourly rate. You see we are at the $15 already for the paraprofessionals, starting the lowest pay grade. And then you have your manual trades, and the lowest is $13 for the manual trades. This is now another thing that you want to look. How many teachers do we have? How many head coaches we have? How many of all the different categories? You get to see the breakdown there. And then it goes to the administrators, and then we do have 2,400 employees. That's a big operation. And then this is the other one that we're looking at that's included in the budget. Mr. Mijares added this, the superintendent. This is a survey of certified substitute teachers. We are paying them $105. The market average is $113. And then you see what all the other districts pay. So we're $113. We pay more than San Felipe. We pay more than Uvalde, Laredo, United, Northside, Southside, and Northside. They pay more. So what he incorporated in the budget was to go from $105, $14 an hour. He went to $120, $16 an hour, a 14.3%, and now we're on the top. We're paying as Northside and as San Antonio ISD. So that's already included in the budget for the certified teachers, which is mostly retired teachers. This is the health insurance. You can see we haven't done any increases in premiums or reduction in benefits at all. We've added and we kept that they can continue, because through COVID, we allowed for them to have doctor's appointments through the phone, and then we I went ahead and allowed that to continue now that we're out of COVID, because a lot of times if they cannot go to San Antonio, they can get it through the phone and they can get their prescription medication. So we're going to continue offering that to employees because they found it very useful during COVID. We learned a lot of things during COVID, so we continue that piece. So if anything we're doing is we're adding benefits. Those are the rates for next year, and then you have the ones from last year, and then you can see that they didn't change. And then I always show you the stuff for the dependents. We pay the highest on the health insurance, and the cost that they pay for their dependents is $344, which is the lowest. Everybody else charges more. Look at Hardendale, what they charge, $950 for a dependent when we charge $344. A lot of time that's not mixed into the salary that they make, but this is a salary and it's not taxed at all. This is the type of dependent coverage. This is what they pay when they have their dependents, a different type of dependents, employee and children, employee and spouse, and whatever, and so forth. We're the ones that charge them the least amount. Everybody else charges more. Hardendale, again, $11,400. That's almost a salary of somebody. Yeah, they don't offset the cost. They give it all to the employee. They pass it over all to the employee. This is the district contribution. Look at our contribution. We have the highest because our school district pays for it. Here, we want to be the highest because we're giving richer benefits. We're paying the health insurance, a bigger portion. That's why they don't pay that much. We don't pass it over to the employee. The district pays for it. And we're the ones that pay the most than anybody else out there. And then here is the district's contribution in total amounts. We pay $10,776 for every employee. It doesn't matter what type of employee it is. That's what we pay so they can have the health insurance that they have. Then again, look at Uvalde. They only pay $3,900. I know Mr. Cox is familiar with Uvalde, but you see how the difference there is. It's a big difference. These are the rates. I know Ms. Purcell likes to look at the rates. She's asked me. That way you can see the rates. These are different, the different things. And yes, there was a minimal increase in the rate. If you look at the bottom, at the last box, the employer's portion went from this year 8% to 8.25. We're gonna have to pay 0.25% more for the teacher retirement. And then you look at the employee, his also went from 8 to 8.25. So they're gonna get a very minimal increase. All the employees, 0.25 is not even half of a percentage. When they were working at this, the percentages were a lot higher. So for whatever reason, at the end, they decided just to leave it at a minimal increase. So that way you see all the rates and you see this is payroll. These are French benefits. French benefits is a part of a payroll cost. So that way you can see, and then we project the ones for 24-25. These are the additional requests. This is what we have all year. It was 7.3 million. These are the different departments. And then these are the financial statements that you have on the agenda. Here you have the M&O. You can look at the M&O, how consistent it is. There it is. It ties in exactly to the figures that I gave you, and that's what you get every month. You actually get a financial statement more comprehensive than what I went over tonight. You see all the line items and you see all the expenditures, all the revenues, everything that comes in and comes out. So you have there basically what you have in the agenda. That concludes our presentation. I don't know if there are any other questions. Thank you.
Good job to you and your staff, Mr. Mijares.
Thank you.
Very good job. We will now move to district reports and presentations. We will take 1 through 5, and I think you pretty much went through them. So if there's any other questions? Nope. We will now move to action items. Number 1, consider and take appropriate action on the request to approve the memorandum of understanding between EPISD and Southwest Texas Junior College for the 2023-202 school year to provide 2023 2024 school year to provide the Eagle Pass High School and CC Wynn High School health science students with the opportunity to obtain a certification and dual credit in these courses: certified nurse aide, certified medical technician, and phlebotomy electrocardiography technician, electrocardiography technician. Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Second. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Number 2, consider and take appropriate action on the request to approve the dual credit agreement between Southwest Texas Junior College and Eagle Pass Independent School District for the 2023-2024 school year. Mr. Mijares?
Yes, we're going to, yes, this is for the dual credit courses. We're going to continue for another year. And Mr. Camarillo is here just in case you have any questions.
Any questions? If not, do we have a motion?
I so move to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other questions? If not, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes unanimous. Number 3, consider and take appropriate action on the request to approve the memorandum of understanding between Eagle Pass Independent School District and Southwest Texas Junior College serving grades 9 through 12 to academy year 2023-2024.
Yes, this is for the early college, since it's a different MOU because we are addressing freshmen and sophomores, but it's basically the same thing.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other questions? If not, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes unanimous. Number 4, consider and take appropriate action on the request to approve the waiver for the teacher data portal of the Texas Assessment Management System for the 2023-2024, 2024-2025, 2025-2026 school years to the Texas Education Agency, and the board delegates the superintendent or designee the authority to make related amendments as per board policy.
Yes, this is for us to be able to use our own data portal, which we use Euphoria, is that correct? That way we don't, the state assessment management system still active for parents through TA, but this authorizes us to use Euphoria for teachers and for testing and so forth.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? If not, do we have a motion?
I so move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Number 5, consider and take appropriate action on the request to approve the renewal of annual software support and maintenance agreement contracts for the 2023-2024 school year, and the board delegates the superintendent or designee the authority to make related budgeted purchases of goods and services as per board policy CH. Mr. McCarty?
Yes, this is a renewal. We usually have to make adjustments every year. Mr. Camarillo and Mr. Cox already went through all the different vendors, and they already negotiated, and this list in the backup is what we're proposing.
Perfect. Do you have any other questions? If not, is there a motion?
I so move.
Ms. Purcell? Okay, second?
Second.
Second. Trustee Fuentes? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes unanimous. Number 6, consider to take appropriate action on the request to approve the consultant contract between EPISD and the City of Eagle Pass Fire Department, who will provide the EPHS and CCWHS health science students the opportunity to obtain a certification as an emergency medical technician. Do we have a motion?
So move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Any other questions? If not, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Number 7, consider and take appropriate action on the request to approve the dual credit partnership between Sul Ross University and Eagle Pass School District for the 2023-2024 school year.
Yes, we are doing an MOU with Sul State University. This would enable us to migrate eventually into Sul Ross so that we can offer more of a pathway to a bachelor's degree for our students.
Perfect. Any other questions? If not, all in favor? I have a motion. I have a motion. Do we have a second?
Yeah, second.
All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. We will now move to consent items. We will take 1 through 13. Any questions? If not, do we have a motion?
Mr. Mijares, Mr. Board President, on item number 1, we'd like to revise the recommended adjustment for the visitor adult meals. We're currently recommending $3.50 to $4 even.
$4 even.
Yes, for breakfast only for the following school year.
Okay. There is a change. Everybody got that? From 350 to 4. Do we have a motion to approve the consent items?
So move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We do have a second. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Consent items are passed. The Board of Trustees of the Eagle Pass Independent School District will convene in closed session as authorized by the Texas Government Code, Chapter 501, to deliberate upon the following matters. We have 1, 2, 3. The board will hear the request to approve personnel contracts as presented pursuant to TGC 551.074. The board will hear the request to hire personnel to fill vacancies to present to TGC 551.074. The board will hear the request to hire a professional employee to serve as instructional officer at Seguin Elementary, subject to possible future reassignment by the superintendent. Number 4, the board will hear the request to hire a professional employee to serve as an instructional officer at Glass Elementary, subject to possible future reassignment by the superintendent. Number 5, the board will hear the request to hire a professional employee to serve as instructional officer at Graves Elementary, subject to the possible future reassignment by the superintendent. Number 6, the board will hear the request to hire a professional employee to serve as instructional officer at Eagle Pass Junior High, subject to possible future reassignment by the superintendent pursuant to TGC 551.074. Number 7, the board will consult with its attorney regarding legal issues relating to the superintendent's annual compensation plan recommendation for the 2023-2024 to include employee pay increases as included in the budget pursuant to TGC 551.071. And at this time, we will move the item number 8 to a possible future date. Do I have a motion to convene in closed session?
So move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. The time is 7:07, and the date is Tuesday, July 11, 2023, and the Board of Trustees is now in closed session, and no action shall be taken in closed session. All right. We are back, and the time is 7:55 PM. The date is Tuesday, July 11, 2023, and the Board of Trustees of the Eagle Pass Independent School District is now in open session, and we will move to item number 10. Number 1, the board will consider and take appropriate action on the request to approve personnel contracts as presented pursuant to TGC 551.074.
Mr. President, I move to approve the request to approve personnel contracts as presented pursuant to TGC 551.074.
We have a motion by Dr. Alvarez. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Purcell. If no other questions, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Number 2, the board will consider and take appropriate action on the request to hire personnel to fill vacancies pursuant to TGC 551.074.
Mr. President, I move to approve the request to hire personnel to fill vacancies pursuant to TGC 551.074.
We have a motion by Dr. Alvarez. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Fuentes. Questions? If not, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes unanimous. Number 3, the board will consider and take appropriate action on the request to hire a professional employee to serve as instructional officer at Seguin Elementary, subject to possible future reassignment by the superintendent.
Mr. President, I move to approve the request to hire Juan C. de la Garza to serve as instructional officer at Seguin Elementary, subject to possible future reassignment by the superintendent.
We have a motion by Dr. Alvarez. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Hiller. Questions? If not, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Number 4, the board will consider and take appropriate action on the request to hire a professional employee to serve as instructional officer at Glass Elementary, subject to possible future reassignment by the superintendent.
Yes, Mr. President, I move to approve the request to hire Arturo Gonzalez to serve as an instructional officer at Glass Elementary, subject to possible future reassignment by the superintendent.
We have a motion by Trustee Martinez.
Second.
We have a second by Trustee Fuentes. Questions? If not, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes unanimous. Number 5, the board will consider and take appropriate action on the request to hire a professional employee to serve as instructional officer at Graves Elementary, subject to possible future reassignment by the superintendent.
Mr. President, I move to approve the request to hire Jose G. Salazar III to serve as instructional officer at Graves Elementary, subject to the possible future reassignment by the superintendent.
We have a motion by Trustee Perry. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Trustee Martinez. Any questions? If not, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. The board will consider and take appropriate action on the request to hire a professional employee to serve as instructional officer at Eagle Pass Junior High, subject to the possible future reassignment by the superintendent pursuant to TGC 551.074.
I move to approve the request to hire David J. Even II to serve as instructional officer at Eagle Pass Junior High School, subject to possible future reassignment by the superintendent pursuant to TGC 551.074.
We have a motion by Trustee Purcell. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Perry. Questions? If not, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Number 7, the board will consider and take appropriate action on the superintendent's annual compensation plan recommendation for the 2023-2024 to include employee pay increases as included in the budget pursuant to TGC 551.071. Mr. Mijares?
Yes, I recommend a salary increase of $50 local step increase per year for years 1 to 4 years experience, and $100 local step increase per year for 5 or more years experience for full-time teachers, counselors, librarians, RNs, and other professionals. I also recommend each employee should earn an additional 5 6 or 7 paid local leave days based on the number of months of service required for the position and in accordance with administrative regulations for the 2023-2024 school year as per board policy DEC local. And the reason I'm making this recommendation is that we have a budget deficit of over $6 million, and the state has put us in a difficult situation where we don't know if they're going to provide additional funding. And if for any reason the state, and we're hopeful, gets their act together and provides additional funding, we will revisit salary increases one more time.
Do we have a motion?
Yes, Mr. President. I move to approve the superintendent's annual compensation plan recommendation for the 2023-2024 school year to include employee pay increases as including the budget pursuant to TGC 551.071.
We have a motion by trustee Fuentes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Hiller. Any questions, comments? If not, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Now we will move to correspondence and information. Mr. Mijares?
Yes, only item we have in the reminders is that Thursday, July 27, we have a joint meeting or workshop at the ICT at 2 o'clock so that we can meet with different entities. So Maricela has added this in the calendar. If not, she'll add it at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Mijares. And now we will move to adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn? We have a motion by trustee Fuentes. Do we have a second? Second by Dr. Alvarez. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. It is July 11th, 8:03 p.m., and we are adjourned.